So that's just starting now. So thank you. I think everybody has muted, which is great because I haven't got any feedback. Kate, have you got any feedback? Is that good?
I'm hearing nothing except you, Marina.
Okay. How lucky you are. Okay. Oh, look at it. Lovely from all these people and all over
No,
England,
it's very
Scotland.
loud. Wow.
Yeah, California. Welcome. That's amazing.
Wrexham,
Okay. All
marvellous.
right. Okay. So, welcome. My name is Marina Robb, and I am one of the directors of a community interest company called Circle of Life Rediscovery, and that offers funded programs and trainings all to do with nature. And my personal background, I was a primary school teacher in the early years. Actually, not my early years, not actually the early years, primary school teaching, and then actually did a lot of traveling, working with groups outdoors, probably for the last 30 years, and have then started Circle Life Rediscovery about 15 years ago, where we train people mainly in forest school and all sorts of CPDs, which we might touch on very briefly as we go along. Kate, would you like to do a little bit of introduction?
Yep. Hello, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us. And I think that, you know, there is a zeitgeist going on here that we are all realizing after this weird time of lockdown, which may not be over yet, let's face it. Being trapped indoors has been very, very difficult. And for those of us who've been able to get outside, it has made a huge difference. And, you know, I think nature play is becoming more and more and more relevant to our future world that we want. So, yeah, my background was I was an expressive arts teacher and led two faculties. So creativity and being outdoors have always gone hand in hand. I'm a director of Circle of Life Rediscovery, and I'm also been a play therapist for about 12, 15 years, to get that right. But for about 10 years, I was also training people to be play therapists. So the therapeutic benefits of being outdoors goes without saying, I think. So.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a PowerPoint, all being well, and then we'll speak, me and Kate will speak through that, and we'll give you an opportunity, as I say at the end, to ask any questions. So here we go.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed you can all see that. That's what I'm hoping. Okay, so I'm going to start the slideshow from the beginning. That's how it works. Right then, so here we are. This is our second webinar in relation to what we are calling Nature Play. So this is our part 2 webinar. And our intention here, I mean, the whole idea, whilst we understand nature play covers a huge area, what we're really talking about, particularly me and Kate, is how do we work with groups as well that are struggling? So it's not just about the everyday person or child that comes outdoors. It's quite specifically working with people that might be struggling. Our first webinar actually covered a little bit of that, and we'll talk about that in a second. And this is really, as I say here, the aim here is to touch a little bit on the health benefits and some ideas for games and activities. And we're really hoping that whilst we'll pitch them as outdoor games and being outdoors for all the reasons that you're going to hopefully leave and understand, we're trying to also do it so that you can bring them indoors as well. So that's our intention. And we really work within this frame that we're calling the Nature Play Continuum. Some people will also know that as the Play Continuum, the Forest Play Continuum, and it's something that me and Kate and some other practitioners have really been working on. So that's the first slide. So before I go to this, I'm hoping you can see the screen. Are you getting the participant information in your screen or not, Kate?
I am noticing that my view of people, including you and me, is on the right of my screen, and it is blocking out some of the slide actually. But
okay. Oops, I don't know what's happened now. Okay, there we go. I'm afraid that is just the way it's going to be at the moment. I don't think there's anything I can do about
somebody asked, oh, you can drag it from Adam. Thanks, Adam. Looks good to me, says.
Okay.
Okay, I can drag this. Let me see. Yay, I can drag it, and I've put it on the other side.
I will try. Okay, I see people can drag it. Thank you very much.
So you can read the whole slide if you need to. Sorry, we're not superbly technological. We're, outdoor play people.
I'm sure most of you are as well. So why are we doing this? We're really sorry.
Sorry. You can also minimize it.
Okay.
The option of minimizing.
All right. Okay. Cool.
Thank you, Chiara. But now you can mute. Okay. So thank you very much. So here we are. We're looking in part 1. We looked at the Nature Play Continuum. So we're not actually going to go back into that this time. So those of you that want to access the Nature Play 1, I'm happy if you email me. I'll send you that recording. The other thing that we looked at last time was really the whole person, the whole child. When we're working outdoors or with any person, we're considering the whole person, and that might be the thinking part of us, the feeling part of us, the physical part of us, the social part of us. So we're really interested in how this work develops and brings well-being to all those parts. The third thing we looked at last time was the importance of reflective language. And again, we're not really doing that this time, but we really do believe that that is one of the skills that is essential to use when working with young people and children. Okay, so I'm moving the next slide along, which is freezing. There we go. So a little bit about Circle of Life, not very much, just to say that we do have many years working with groups and young people. 50% of what we do is free and funded. We have groups we work with young people with mental health issues, with severe learning disabilities. We work with the parents of people who have children in those situations, and we train people to work in this way. And the course that we're basing this short webinar on is called the Nature Play and Therapeutic Space. Okay, so emotional well-being, we just want to touch on a few things. So part of what nature can offer is emotional well-being. Now we know the research shows that there's a huge reduction in stress when people go outdoors into nature. That's to do with a reduction in cortisol in their body. Actually, there's a lot of research around trees and how that also reduces the hormones. Well, actually, the trees exude a hormone that helps us to relax. We also know that nature, particularly the non-directive approach that we've been talking about in Nature Play 1, really builds confidence, self-worth, autonomy, all the things that we want in young children. We know that there's a huge amount of joy when it comes to playing outdoors, and that obviously releases the hormones. And then we have this word here of resilience that a lot of people talk about, and that's that ability to bounce back. And of course that links to me to, well, many things, but one of those things is risk taking. So how do we promote healthy risk taking where we know that the learning is at the edge of our comfort zone, and that we're encouraging people to step at that edge, sometimes a little bit beyond, and then us as practitioners supporting that. So emotional well-being in nature, another huge list. So again, we're not going to go through all this, but just to kind of name some things, you might notice that this research is actually very old. It's 1999. There's a huge amount of research that's far more up to date that actually is accessible, but we wanted to just repeat some of the most common attributes that we know that play in the outdoors bring for young people. So we have our physical health, of course, movement, the whole development of our gross and motor skills. Kate will talk a little bit about the impact of sunlight, fresh air, the whole immunity of actually touching soil and and having that under our fingertips, and how that they understand that gut bacteria is enhanced through touching soil, for example. Then we have the mental and emotional health. And a word there that I like is satisfaction. You know, that really comes out a lot when we work outdoors, this sense of satisfaction. And I know all of us here today will know, even if we go for a walk, often we come back feeling satisfied. And that is something that nature provides. The whole spiritual aspect, in the last webinar, we referenced that in not in a religious context, but in a kind of meaningful, purposeful context, how nature asks the big questions. It helps us to think about life and death and meaning and purpose. Certainly this time we're living in is really getting us to re-evaluate that, all of us, and to hopefully start to be able to change our priorities somewhat. And then there's that environmental health, and that's a statement I wouldn't use so much nowadays, but it's that kind of guardianship, that understanding of that reciprocal relationship. And of course we can't get that, children can't learn that, we can't learn that unless we actually are outside and we have that experience and understand that ongoing relationship. Right, so here we have a picture that just kind of frames that a little bit more in terms of how children, we know that children's ability to roam, it's called the roaming radius, has been significantly reduced in the last 70, 80 years. Certainly when me and Kate were preparing for this, we remembered that our grandparents certainly would roam freely without the gaze of adults, and that would be called wild play. We're not doing that here. We're doing a play where an adult is there. That is the difference. But we're talking about a huge reduction in children's sense of freedom, self-discovery with their peers or alone. And, you know, we're living in a time where it says here, the extinction of experience. We need to experience life directly. Okay, so this is something that we're super interested and want to support, is for us to feel safe enough and not risk averse to go into life, to build that resilience. And because life is changing a lot and it's going to continue to change, so we need to have that. Okay, another little quick whistle stop tour here is the therapeutic benefits. So again, I'm not going to go through in detail, but again, I mentioned gross motor skills. Those are the big movements that happen outdoors, the running, the jumping, the loud noises, the full expression, the carrying of heavy rocks and sticks, and all this is, you know, hugely important for our development. And then confidence. If we go up and we don't feel that we can use our body and have that, and you know, this is for boys and girls, or however we identify, but certainly for me as a woman, having that freedom in my body is really important, and it's important for everybody. Attention, Kate will look at that in a minute a little bit more. Development of our visual skills, how actually we need to be able to see things far away, near, move our heads, look around in order to develop our visual skills. Auditory skills, how do we discriminate between all the sounds that we're absorbing through our senses in our brains? The outdoors provides that. Fine motor skills, I mentioned that, this notion that we know that we need to develop our ability to hold on to things, and of course using sticks and things like that does that, and then those skills are transferred to writing using pencils and so on. Social, well, we get to hang out with each other in nature, we get to see different parts of each other, we get to work on building dens, we get to you know, share feelings. Sitting around a fire is one of the best places where we can open up and share things in those sorts of contexts. So huge opportunity. I always think of being around the fire as like a great leveler. You know, we're all around that fire, we're all on the same place in the circle, and I know a lot of us are feeling quite sad and shocked about what's happening around the world, and particularly in America at the moment, and you know, that whole place. Where do we place ourselves, and how do we hope that we place ourselves among each other equally and among the natural world as well. And then there's creativity. You know, nature is so inspiring, and we've got a few things to show you today that is, we hope, somewhat creative. Some of you will know a lot of it. Emotional, you know, the feelings that arise when you're in nature, actually it allows you to often be more vulnerable and to share that with others. And creating a therapeutic recess environment, that's a very American phrase there, but just really taking the time that we need to develop ourselves. Okay, Kate, very patiently over to you.
Yes, well, I hope you all have been paying attention. Because, of course, you know, what we demand of our children, especially at school, is that they pay attention to us. And it's something that we take for granted, that if a child isn't paying attention, they're making a deliberate choice in not paying attention. But actually, to develop attention focus skills is something that we need to help children with. Quite dramatically, we need to help them with it. And all of the research coming out of, and there has been a lot of neuroscience research into the benefits of being outdoors. And one of the things is that the sensory inputs are calmer, they're more relaxed. And when our brain can relax more, and as Marina's mentioned, the flood of cortisol that comes with stress, when we're actually feeling a little bit more relaxed, we can actually begin to use our sensory inputs. And when we're trying to pay attention to teacher who's talking at the front of the class, actually, we need to use all of our senses. We're not just using our ears. We're not just using our eyes. It's actually the whole body focuses on the whole of the person in front who we're meant to be paying attention to. So, if there's no other reason for going outside, it is to help the child develop these very important attention focused skills that they need for the academic learning that they will all be going back to eventually. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so sight. Okay, we depend a lot on sight. In fact, we know, and I'm sure all of you know already, that we depend on it, and we think it's the thing that gives us the most information on a subject or on an experience. But in actual fact, it's all the other senses, and particularly what the body is doing and how the body is moving, that really we are picking up as the communication from that person. So eyes, of course, are very, very important. And our eyes do need sunlight in order to grow and function properly. Also, being out in the sun, of course, gives us vitamin D, which, if you're following all of the information that is coming out about, best ways of avoiding becoming ill at this time, it's about vitamin D. And so we have to get outside if we're going to get vitamin D. Okay, thank you. Hearing, excuse me, you'll hear I have a bit of a cough. It's nothing serious, more hay fever than anything. The ears, again, are something that we assume children are not listening to us, when in actual fact, our modern environments tend to provide such an overstimulated auditory input. It is very hard. If you're in a room where the television is on and people are talking and so on, the brain is finding it very hard to make clear neural connections that help us focus our attention on hearing. So outdoors, again, things are calmer. Here at the bottom, you'll see we're discussing mindfulness because it's very popular, or it was before all of this happened. Schools were adopting this idea children needed quiet time to focus, which is great. It's great. And I'm just suggesting here that if you can do your quiet times, or your sit spots, as Forest School often calls them, if you can do them outdoors, as long as the air's not that polluted. Although even so, if you get into a green space, it's amazing how much the research shows trees will absorb the polluting chemicals in the air. So outdoors is a good place for mindfulness practice. Thank you. Next. Okay, and yes, smell and taste are completely linked. You will know that too. And good games to play to help children develop their ability to, you know, define different smells, decide what I like and what I don't like. You know, knowing what smells are good for you and what smells are bad for you, what tastes you like and what tastes you don't like, having that choice to build up your repertoire of likes and dislikes is actually developing your ego sense of self. So it's a good game to play with a child. And I like this one, cover your nose and eyes, and then cover only your eyes and see what the difference is. Perhaps you can have a go at that later.
Okay. So here we have just a couple of pictures of some of the things that we will do with children outdoors. So in terms of hearing, I'm recognizing that actually through a webinar, you're not going to really be able to well, I don't think you can even see me speaking, but if you look at the screen, you can see some children are cupping their hands and then they're putting it around their ears. Now, if you have a go, yes, Kate, fantastic. You can demo that. If you do that, it's really interesting. So just for a moment, you might want to just move your hands. Anyway, it's good to have a little bit of movement and put them around your ear. And what you'll find, I hope, certainly when you get outside, that it amplifies the sound. Okay, so really nice for little children as well as teenagers to have a go at playing with putting your hands around your ears and then putting them down. And then we take that to another level. Then we take that into games. So we might play a game which could be called Deer Stalk, or sometimes we even call it Deer Eyes, where somebody will be blindfolded or close their eyes in the middle of a space, and then children need to come in and creep in and remove the bandana or the stick.
I call it the treasure seeker game, but
there's many variations.
Same thing, yeah.
And then here we also have like children on the ground in the middle of the picture, sort of here, and that was an early sort of years, they're about 5 years old, and we got them to lie down and close their eyes, and then we walked around them and they had to point to where we were. So actually what that was about was their body picking up the sensation of the walking, just like the animals and the snakes do. So they pick it up, because we talk about the earth being like a skin of the drum. A skin of a drum. So as you walk, it sends a kind of vibration around. Then you've got an example of people with their hands wide open. They're not just exercising, they're actually doing another exercise called the owl eyes, where they're exploring, opening up their periphery vision. And again, that's exercising, of course, their eye muscles, but it's also getting them to notice things that they wouldn't normally notice. So these are some of the basic, let's say, core routines in nature work. And then you've got a picture at the top just of younger people being blindfolded, and we will talk a bit about blindfold. It's not for everybody or every child, but they're having fun following a rope going along. And then, of course, we could play with sounds. We could have people close their eyes, and then you play a sound, and they have to find the thing that made the sound or listen to different sounds around them. All these things can just be little fillers, if you like, if you're in a park, or actually a little bit more wild. So again, some more pictures. It's not just young children, it's older children. And here I'm really highlighting that actually one of the reasons, why do we use blindfolds so much? You might think there's a lot of that going on here. And really it's because as humans, eyes are our dominant sense. So if we can see, we tend to not use our other senses, and so they atrophy, the muscle hardens, doesn't get used. So a lot of the time when we remove our vision in games and activities, suddenly all our other senses are enlivened and awakened, and it really adds to the experience. It's really a lot of fun. It's a bit scary, but again on that edge, But suddenly you can have a different relationship with the world around you just because you're removing your sight. So there's lots to think about with that as well. So over to you, Kate.
Well, I have managed to go out and pick up, this leaf here, which I expect you can identify. This is just a nice thing to do if you're outside with children, is to find a leaf where there are plenty of them. Obviously, don't go picking anything where there are not many. This is a dandelion, and it will make a nice salad later, possibly. And just engage with it with all your senses. See how it feels if you touch it on your lip compared to how your fingertips feel. We've got very different sensors on our fingertips to those on our lips. So that's quite nice to just see how it tickles on your lips and it doesn't tickle when you put it on your fingertips. Things like this, very simple. So if we recap, I'm not going back through my favorite Daniel Kahneman way of dealing with how our brains are working, but we have a system 1 that is automatic and unconscious and a system 2. But what I really want to remind us all of is just, if you want to create new stories, if we want to help the child build positive memories, then informing our sensory networks of lovely things that are interesting, that create curiosity and engagement and allows our attention to focus, then we are actually building a new positive story in the memory bank. And this has been a very strange time for children. I'm very aware of that with my grandchildren. It's not over yet either. So.
Yep, I'm trying to, there it is.
Okay, so we're on to the section of more games that you can take into inside your houses. You can go out, collect things and bring them back. It doesn't all have to be done actually outside. I know in very hot countries, being outside is it's not pleasant. You do need to go back inside. And I know some of you are living in hot countries who are, hello, everyone. And so therefore, some of these games, you can either play them outside or you can play them inside. And we're basing them around the 4 elements, elements that give all life on our planet: earth, fire, water, and air. And today we can only really look at games connecting us to the earth.
Okay.
So, Marina, are you ready with our little demonstration?
Maybe.
Okay,
I've got some paper.
I've not done this. This is a wonderful thing to do, and children love it, and actually adults, people of all ages enjoy this amazing thing that you can take anything, grind it up, add a little bit of water, use a brush, and paint with it. And Marina has even made a natural brush, I believe. Marina, would you like to know?
So I went into the garden and I found some rosemary, and then I found these weird little sedge things. So I've decided to make my own paintbrushes. And of course, what we would do is we do this together with children, hang out, and I have no idea. I've never painted with rosemary or sedge grass. And then I got a little bowl, and I appreciate you. I must be in a tiny screen at the bottom of your, but I put some charcoal in there from a little fire. And then I put some mud. Well, actually it's cheating. It's not mud, it's clay. And I added a little bit of water. So what we're really saying here is have fun mixing things.
Experimentation is the name of it.
Experimentation. This is at its simplest: clay, charcoal, mashing up leaves. Wash your hands if you don't know what you're doing. If you don't know the plants, we would encourage you to use what we call green light plants, but that's for another time. So use things like a fruit. Why not? With a group of children that have learning disabilities, they like to eat it. So we've now made paint with yogurt. So, you know, whatever you want to do. So then you get your paintbrush. You can either use human-made paintbrushes or your own made paintbrushes, and get some paper, but you don't need paper. You can use cloth, you can use leaves, you can use trees, you can use anything you want. And let's see. Okay, so here's the clay. You've got to be a bit careful. This is a bit ridiculous in some ways, but no one's watching. Oh, it's working.
Yes, I can see.
Can you see my art? Woo-hoo. Okay, so that was sedge. That was sedge. I think it's sedge. And then just to top it off, we'll do some with. Oh, rosemary's got a different texture. It's got quite a. It's like more fairy-like that. Okay, so you get the idea. You get the idea. And to be frank, I'm not. I wouldn't consider myself an artist.
We're all artists.
Convenient. I know. But we would but I work really well with children because it's all good, isn't it? Less judged in that way. So grind things up, as Kate's saying, grind things up, and you know, make paintings, experiment. You can do this indoors, and you know, maybe you need to put a tarp out, maybe a bit of tarpaulin, a bit of plastic. Create space for mess. Wouldn't you agree, Kate?
Yeah, mess is great.
Mess. Okay.
And then on a less messy, but again back to leaves and a magnifying glass. Now, if you have a magnifying glass, it's amazing to just help, you know, to watch children looking at things up close, and to look into the cellular structure through a magnifying glass of a leaf. It's very beautiful. You know, and then it can stir lots of questions a child may have about, you know, how does it get its food? You know, well then, you know, in an open-ended, child-led, reflective way, you would be saying, oh yeah, I wonder how the plant gets its food. And then the child may begin to explore, oh, maybe it gets its food through. Yeah. So allowing a child to have their own exploration of possibilities is great. You can always fill in with the actual facts at a later date. But once the child has actually made that exploration of this leaf and what it does and how it lives and how it grows, it becomes a bit personal. And once we feel personally attached to something, we're much more likely to want to find out more from the point of view of facts. Okay. Oh, and the game is very good. We can cut a leaf up into pieces. This is a very simple leaf, obviously. And then we can put it back together again. This is a simple leaf. A bigger leaf you could cut into bigger pieces, more pieces, obviously. And
I've got one here. A little bigger.
So yeah. So leaf jigsaw puzzles. So and you could obviously also ask a child to make, you know, take clay and see if they can make a model of it.
So you can play lots of games by cutting up leaves, and then they have to put them back together again. And if they're younger, you could choose a big leaf and, you know, only break it up twice. And then if it gets more complicated, you would obviously want to make the pieces smaller, like those very demanding 1,000-piece puzzles, if any of you have been doing any of those in this time.
Chop a leaf up into 1,000 pieces and put it back together.
Okay, here we go. So next one. Okay, so just a couple of other ideas. You see some painting there that's been just done on the ground outside using stuff that's been found. We've also got some clay here. This is actually air drying clay, but you can use clay that you've dug out of the ground or clay that you've bought that's natural clay. And then over here, some of you will be able to see a little pot. So we like to make little pots out of clay. Again, I mean, I did this just before we came on air, if that's how you call it. And it's a little pot. And what I do is I put some cotton wool into the pot. This is just one idea of many. And then I get a smell. So today I get essential oil. I'm going to use lemongrass, but I might use lavender. I might have made a potion out of whatever plants I've got. And then I have my own little smell pot. And this kind of activity can be extended into all sorts of things, both at home when you're feeling a little bit sad and you want to smell something that lifts you, like light lavender or orange. You can have a little smell, and you can do all sorts of fun things in your group, because some people will like smells, some people won't like smells. And of course, they're making something they can take home with. So we're really only touching on some of the ideas at the moment, but we hope you go, okay, that's a good idea. That's the idea anyway.
And some of them you may know already, of course.
Of course, we don't underestimate the knowledge in the room, so to speak. Okay, another little quick ideas is we love sticks, stones, shells, things that you can get naturally. Just a very simple idea, a branch. This is when we're traveling actually in China, which was not quite a few years ago. So we just, having a piece of stick, winding string around it, and then weaving. And of course you can weave with things that you found. That can be extended into large weavings for groups, small weavings, taking it to, delicate, creative. Someone's come in with their mic. If they can put their mic off, that would be wonderful. Mic with children. Double whammy.
Hello.
I don't think I know how to turn them off.
Hello, whoever you are.
Okay, so...
and these leaves are interesting, aren't they, Marina? Because the way you do that is put the leaf underneath and bang it.
So I don't know, does anyone know who's actually making this? I can't see who's actually making the noise, so I can't mute them. There we go. Sorry, Kate.
Alexander.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so sorry, Kate, you were just saying about these leaves. This is leaf bashing, which was a name. Some people have started calling it hapasome, which is a Japanese art form, which I'm sure is where it came from. And yeah, you can take leaves and you can fold material and you can use something to bash it and create all these beautiful designs from plants and leaves, and you can make flags and bunting and on it goes. Very, very simple, but it will cheer up an indoor space and an outdoor space. And all the while there's an underlying invisible learning that's taking place. Learning is taking place, development is taking place through all these activities. Okay, we need to keep going because it's easy to run over time, but we're going to try and keep to the time. Another idea, lovely idea, is just getting sticks and clay, and off you go. What can you make with sticks and clay? Well, I've seen all sorts. I've seen huge constructions to very, very fine constructions, and you can link all of this to the curriculum. And we're not doing that here. That's not our objective today, but all of this will link to all the science, the history, biology, physical development, all that. But this is a wonderful
and of course, don't forget den making.
Den making, absolutely. So quick one on this, Kate, would you like to share?
Oh, this is one of my favorite games, Chaos into Order, because it is a system 1, system 2, the chaotic, crazy, emotional brain into our ordered, structured brain exercise, where gather up just a bundle of stuff as you're going out for a walk, loads of leaves, sticks, twigs, whatever, into big bag, take it back, tip it all out onto a tarpaulin if you're inside, or outside onto a, tip it all out, and then get the group to sort it. It's very simple, but it's so satisfying. You can see here, this is a group of adults enjoying sorting out what is obviously a more autumnal bundle of stuff. On the other side, on the left-hand side, we can see that the collection of chaos has been limited to just leaves. And someone has very carefully collected leaves from lots of different trees. And now the exercise is putting them into their order of particular trees. So you're beginning to get into that classification mind, which, we expect children to be able to have at school, to see that things form into sets and can be classified. So this is a nice way of helping the brain log that possibility.
So that's one of, again, many ideas. I'm sure of you are thinking, God, I could do this, I can do it that way, and that's exactly the point. So I'm going to keep going because very briefly on this, because we're already at 14
again
minutes.
And you know, the wonders of nature and the way nature grows is in fractals, where one shape is repeated, not necessarily the same size. Well, we can help children understand that by using sticks, one of our favorite materials, and making fractals on the ground, as you can see in these examples.
Fantastic. Another one.
Oh yeah, another one accredited to Middle Park Primary School. You give the kids 20 objects, all the same, like, you know, say the white stones or these bluey grey stones, and then they have to go out and find 20 other objects the same. In this case, they've used sticks, and this one little flowers, and then they can do what they want with them and create a pattern.
And what I've been doing at the moment is I've gathered stones from the beach, and I'm going to be putting, some of them I'm going to put numbers on them. I'm going to create a clock for a younger person that I'm working with. We're going to look at that together, and we're going to put tracks on them, and we're doing all sorts of different things with stones. And then with pieces of wood, we've put a number, and then we've painted an animal or whatever with a ladybird with spots. So there's just, again, so that's a little bit more mathematical, but again, what can you do? It keeps going. You can even make songs out of these, so that becomes a particular rhythm. This is a different rhythm. There's on it goes. Another quick one here.
Okay, another, again, my favorite thing, attention focus. You use 4 sticks, find your little area of land. It doesn't really have to be exactly as I'm describing it here. This is for the older child. For the younger child, you would just mark out a square and ask them to, with their magnifying glass, to really have a good look at what's inside the square. And then on a large piece of paper with a bigger square, they draw what they've seen in their grassy square or their land square. So basically there's a load going on here about scaling up, and it can be done properly using grid, as you can see.
And it's interesting because as you're saying that, Kate, I'm thinking, again, these are ideas, these are inspirations. In some ways they're coming from the adult in this sense, but go outside and children will develop their own games and do their own thing. But
exactly, these are directed.
These are directed.
But with our way of working, you know, maybe sometimes we start with a direction and then the children take it off on their own tangents. And that's beautiful. That means they're really learning.
Okay. Almost at the end here.
Yeah, again, sticks. What you can do with a stick. And a journey stick you can take a little walk around your garden. You could take a little walk around the park, picking things up as you go. And then when you come home, you attach them to your stick, and it becomes a reminder of the journey, and you can make up stories from the different objects you may have tied. Or you can turn the stick into a magic wand. You know, children like the whole idea of magical. And you can make little cases. Yeah. Or you can actually, and of course the talking stick, which is a Native American way of helping a group all be heard and all have their chance to speak by holding the stick. Okay. All right. And here, just a very brief, because we are running out of time, sadly. Virginia Axline's 8 principles. Virginia Axline is really accredited with being the founder of play therapy. She was a person-centered counselor working with children. And she gave us these 8 principles, which, yes, they are amazing to follow as a therapist, but actually I have found they are very, very good way of reminding ourselves how we should be working with children in general. Like, yeah. So I'll let you read the rest of that slide because I think we've come to the end just about of time.
I've got a little surprise for you, Kate.
Have you?
Hello.
Oh, hello. Okay, those of you who know me will also know Horace. Hi. Right, isn't it, Horace? Horace is my assistant, and he's
George.
many years. Yeah, I know. He's a very cheeky fella, but he's been very helpful. And we can't really go into how you might use puppets and story. At this point, we haven't got time. But, you know, you can always sign up for the full course. You want to meet Horace again. Oh.
So as we come to the end, it's hard to summarize what is a ridiculously quick tour of some ideas, as well as, I hope, framed within as we said, the nature play continuum and the importance of the senses and the importance of the outdoors for our well-being and our development. And, you know, as we've been saying about focus, really important as well for that. So we know that children need the outdoors for play, learning, well-being and development. And there is huge research there to access. The Children and Nature Network, if none of you know about that. If you want research, you need to just sign up to the Children Nature Network. And just to say, of course, this is who we are, Kate, Macairt and Marina, Robb, and this is a way of connecting with us. And if you are local, it'd be great to see you, but we're really delighted that we're able to share some of this with you. And I'm going to bring us back into the main room together here.
And I think an important, you know, the message really to get out there to your friends and families and colleagues is actually you need to get these kids outside. And I know that the Corona schools, as I've been calling them, my grandchildren have been going because their mother's a key worker. They have been doing outdoor learning. So, you know, that's what's needed.
Yes. So thank you very much, everybody. So those of you that need to go, I'm going to put up the chat again. Well, we've had a nice lot of thank yous. Really appreciate everyone that's coming here. Hope it was inspiring. That's our intention. We know this is our second sort of webinar in this way, so really appreciate. Thank you, everybody.
Great. I'm glad the ideas are helpful.
We're going to be here for 5 more minutes if somebody wants to shoot a question our way. Maybe not shoot, it's not the right approach, but throw us a bundle of a question. We'd be happy to take a couple of questions. Otherwise, I'm going to ask that, well, just say thank you. So if anyone wants, you have to take a risk. It means you have to take your mic off and actually speak. Is there a burning question anywhere? So,
could I ask one?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I sent an email with this question. I mean, this is something I work here as a primary and kindergarten teacher, and sometimes I get a bit of hostility from the teachers when I try and bring natural materials into the classroom. So, you know, I'm just kind of wondering, have you got any advice on trying to get the teachers on board when you're trying to do these kind of things? Because I just get it. Oh, you're doing this hippie stuff again, you know, or you know, that's the kind of.
Well, what I would be saying is, I did get your email only about an hour ago, so I can respond better then. But I would be really saying that to do a PowerPoint, go and do an assembly, start taking it to the front and actually talk about the importance of all this work. Actually start showing the evidence, doing it to the parents and to the teachers, because if they don't understand the value of play and nature and the senses and all the sorts of things we're trying to do, then they're going to think you're just messing about. I actually think we're way past the hippie notion. I really do. I don't buy that anymore.
I know there are a lot of play therapists out there, and I know you'll all have felt that point where, you know, you've met that kind of response as a play therapist, you know. But actually, if you can go in with some science and some statistics, you know, the trouble with leaders of schools, and I apologize for anyone here who isn't in, you know, but very often, you know, the mindset of a leader has to be on statistics. Therefore, if we go in and meet them on that, we can
attainment targets. I mean, that's, and understandably, isn't it? You know, and these can, that you can raise, the research shows that the outdoors, whether that's forest school or other types of learning, raises literacy, I can see Joanne Booth nodding, and I'm like, it's there, the evidence is there. Natural Connections Project, look that up, Plymouth. huge statistics around that. I mean, I'm hesitating because I do have a book that's coming out in 2020 that will have all of this information in. So I don't normally say that, but you know, the Forest School Association link into those places. There's huge, big organisations. This is not a new thing. This has been going on for many years. And in terms
in
of
other
making
European countries, it's well
yeah, absolutely. But we're normalizing it. That's what's happening. It's becoming more normal. And I would say get your PowerPoint, you know, go in front of the parents and explain. I mean, it really makes a difference because they're worried. They don't think they're learning. They don't think they're getting anything, and that's actually not true.
They're just playing with them, you know.
Yeah.
You don't realize the information is coming along for the ride, basically. You know.
Yeah.
Well, you see, when the brain is in playful mode, it's actually most conducive for learning.
Yeah. So a few people just to what's the word? I can't even think of the word, but you will get a recording of this. Okay. So you'll get a recording of the PowerPoint, and a lot of people are concerned about that. We'll send it out probably Monday, if not tomorrow. And Joanne, because I happen to see you with your hand up and you've been shaking your head, maybe this could be the last question at this point. Thank you.
I just want to say that I work in primary and secondary schools, and primary on the whole are pretty much do engage. I really struggle with secondary schools engaging in play because it is all focused on academic. I'm just wondering, is there somewhere where you can guide me to that would back some evidence up that actually play doesn't stop at reception in year one, and that it continues right into teenage and early adolescence? Whether you could direct me into some sort of research or some reading that I can look into for evidence of that.
We could certainly add some, give you some pointers, perhaps, if you email.
Yeah.
I would say that there is plenty out there that suggests that, yeah, teenagers' brains are different. We've all been there. We know we felt different as a teenager. And if you've got teenage children, you'll be going through it. And I know it's been very, you know, this has been a weird time for them when they should just be out there socializing, and they've had that. So I think, you know, the way forward, I think with most leaders of schools at the moment is to say to them, you know, the impact mentally, and there's plenty in the press about this, the mental impact of this lockdown on all of us has been dramatic, actually.
Yeah.
And I think for teenagers in particular, when they do return to school, whenever that is, they will need gentle, therapeutic almost interventions to help the groups reform.
Yeah,
and
I think
creativity will be the way forward.
I think I agree. I think that they go too far into isolation is their go-to. And I'm saying, no, get them out into nature, get them to self-regulate, because they're so much shoved in isolation. And I think that's just got
they need
no
to
benefit of it.
and have some fun.
So I'm very happy to link you up with some of those things. I mean, most of my work, certainly in the last 10 years, has been with secondary schools and teenagers, with especially mainly with the services, because they're struggling. So I think there is a lot of work up there. But obviously what normally happens is that there are groups that are targeted that then get this, and not everybody. So there are lots of secondary schools that are offering green interventions, forest school, targeted groups, and there is a lot of research there. But the problem is the curriculum. It's like, and then you've got eco schools, like even my local school, they'll come out to the woods 4 times a year. You know, it's limited. What we want to do is to get them learning through nature and with nature. I mean, PSE, you know, the personal, social, emotional curriculum, that's another way. I mean, and certainly there are secondary schools that will do camps with us, because they understand how that builds self-confidence, resilience, going away from home, all that kind of thing. So they are there, but you're right. At the end of the day, this movement is more accepted in early years, more comfortable in primary, and less in secondary. But I can tell you, and you'll know, I mean, Kate will know, that we are children, aren't we? So if we don't, and this is another webinar, but if we don't develop where we need to develop, then we need to go back and we need to revisit that in a different way. And that's why this work is so powerful, isn't it, Kate?
Well, and that's why so many of us in this weird time have been going outside for walks more than we may be used to, you know, because we're all very aware we feel better. And actually that's what we need to give all the children when they are returning to school, and right now if you can.
Okay, so I'm going to end just by saying, because a few questions again, so it's the Children and Nature Network. They will have research on the secondary schools, no doubt. This is an international organisation that pools research. So it's really, really good. And someone said, what was that Nature Connection? It was called the Nature Connection Project, and it's Plymouth. I think it's Plymouth University. I think it's Sue Waits who led the research. That's much more about outdoor learning, less about, so that's more on the adult-led side of the continuum and less about the non-directive. But we don't prioritize. We understand that there's a need for all of that, and that comes into play more when we look at children that are struggling. So I just want to thank you all again. Thank you, Kate. Thanks for being part of this movement, and good luck, everybody, and enjoy where you are. And you'll get an email from us, and I hope that was valuable. And yeah, thanks for any technology, understanding.
And watch this space, I guess.
Watch this space. Okay, I'm going to see if I can end. I can end. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you, and
Thank you,
bye-bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye.